Hey there, this is Tammy, and I'm wanting to talk about what happens when nurses are too busy in the workplace. And I deal in the realm of conflict, and so naturally, I'm going to share with you how when nurses feel too busy, this leads to more conflict and tension in the relationships with their bosses, with their team members, with their patients and families, and the interdisciplinary team itself. And I want to start out with sharing an example because what happens is when we feel like we're too busy, we have an expectation. We set it up in our mind, all these things that we need to do in a day. Patient A, B, C, D, dressing A, B, C, D. Like there's a lot of things on our to-do list. And accomplishing that task is what makes us feel like a good nurse. Now, when we're too busy, some of the factors that fall into us feeling too busy are when we walk into a patient's room with the expectation that they are waiting for us to provide the care and they're going to participate and we're going to be efficient and we're going to move on to the next room. That often doesn't happen, especially in healthcare. And if you've ever walked out of a patient's room, gritting your teeth, oh my goodness, fumes coming out your ears because you're so frustrated that things did not go in the timeline in which you anticipated them, or you met a challenge you weren't expecting, or you hit resistance, or just in sometimes nursing world, things just kind of blow up, right? And I'm not talking about our relationships. I'm talking about a code brown, maybe. There is something that is there that is challenging your ability to meet your timelines. And then all of a sudden we get this feeling that, oh my God, I'm too busy for this. I don't have time for this inconvenience, this interruption, this something I didn't plan for. And then what ends up happening is we start to internalize it. We make it about ourselves, and our emotions start to build up: frustrations, disappointment, self doubt. Am I ever going to get it done? And conflict settles in. Now, I'll share my story here quickly about when I was a nurse educator working with students. We had a particular patient, and on day 3, I had had enough. And I wasn't even in that room all day long, but I was helping my students navigate the challenges with this particular patient. And I want to share this one because on day 3, something magical happened. We made a shift. But before I get to that shift, I want to come back and just talk to you about how when a nurse is too busy, how it impacts the relationship with the patient and your team members. So this particular patient was senior, female, was in the hospital with a C-collar, and a wound as a result of the C-collar was now developing. And because she was resistant to care, she was starting to develop wounds on her backside. Now, the whole time we had her, her whole mission was to get the H out of the hospital because the food sucked, the people sucked, we were always interrupting her. There was nothing good that she could say about the care in the hospital. And yet, when it came to getting her towards home, she was not participating in any activity that was going to make that possible. In fact, she was working against herself. And so, as the nurse is caring for her, it became extremely frustrating. Now, you may have had an experience like this, and if so, let me know. I'm happy to have a chat in the comments below as we go along. In fact, actually, I'll pull up the comments here. Oh, hey Dre, thanks for watching. Okay, if you have any comments, just put them in there and I will be able to respond to them. Otherwise, I will look afterwards. Now, coming back to this particular patient, day 1, she was like this. And what happens when we're feeling a deficiency? We're not able to get their cooperation. We're not able to influence them and motivate them to do things. We start to make it about ourselves, and we start to use language that externalizes that feeling. And here's what we often see in the workplace. We have patients who are labeled as non-compliant, as difficult, as rude, and that labeling, which I'm just going to say right now, I do not like labels, and I will challenge all of my students and my colleagues to look beyond a label. But when we use those labels, we're externalizing our pain, our deficiency, and we are making it about them, not following our lead. And we have it backwards. we externalize that it's about them, but really what we're saying is it's about us because I don't know how to deal with this and I don't have time to deal with this and somebody else can figure this out because I am not going in that room again unless I absolutely have to. And so then when we do go in, our care is less connected, less patient-centered. Our conversations are less enjoyable even. We just don't go in there as often. And so here's what happens as a result of this conflict and tension we have in the relationship. Patient care suffers. We go home at the end of the day thinking about, oh my God, why can't I figure this out? What's wrong with me? And when we make it about ourselves, we forget to make it about them. Now, this particular patient, I'll be honest, we had her for 3 days. And like I said, at day 3, I was like, no more. We are not taking this assignment anymore because I've had my fill. And it's because every time I walked into that room, and as much as I love a challenge, I wasn't successful with her on the first day or the second day, and she was an edge for me. So for me then, I'm like, well, we just won't take her, right? But I wasn't exploring the opportunity that was presented to me on day 1 or day 2, but day 3, not 2, day 3, was when we took a step back and we had to get curious. And here is where I think when we feel like we don't have time, I spent 2 days in frustration and 2 evenings thinking about her and 2 full days wondering how is it I could be a good nurse if I can't get her to like move towards her goals. In 5 minutes, we resolved all of those issues and she was then on board with her goal of getting home faster. But if we didn't stop to get curious and really find out what is the barrier and get back focused on the patient, we would have never got to that resolution. She would have been continuously labeled as non-compliant, which again, side note, don't do that. It's distracting and it takes you away from the real opportunity of learning. And a patient is never non-compliant. A patient leads, we follow. That's my opinion. And it will serve you well if you remember that the patient is trying to communicate something that maybe they don't have the words or the safety to tell you. So we have to do the work. We have to get curious. Now, this particular patient, when we decided we weren't taking her anymore because we were frustrated, and I mentioned we didn't go in there as often, we connected less, we gave the bare minimum, the necessities, but nothing more. We made it about us. And once we got connected to making it about her again, we were able to resume and revive this relationship that was at risk. And we were able then to be a participant and a collaborator with her to get her where she wanted to go. Now, if you don't know how to do that, that's pretty typical. Like, we're not taught how to resolve these issues that come up, these tensions that come up, especially when we think we have no time. But the truth of the matter is, it only took us 5 minutes, and that got rid of all of the tension in our relationship, and we were able to move forward. So I wasn't spending 10 minutes in there trying to negotiate with her to take her medication. We weren't spending 10 minutes in there rolling her over, repositioning her just for her to fall back over again and for us to leave frustrated, because we took the time. When you invest up front, it pays off in dividends. We took the time to understand her needs. Now, I will tell you, it was a shocker to all of us. A complete shocker. Because her issue had nothing to do with the care, even though she was verbally saying she hated the place, the food, how we interrupted her, all of the things. She was shooing physio away, shooing the doctors away. And yet, when she came around and we finally got to the real root of her cause, we gave her more attention in her mind than her husband at home did, which is why she didn't want to leave. She actually didn't want to leave, although she was saying she wanted to leave. So the problem, the barrier for her had nothing to do with what we were doing. It was an external problem that we needed to address before we could get her to move forward on her path to resolution. Now, I offer up this example because I was stumped for 3 days with this lady. I was frustrated. I was spending lots of time consumed with negative emotions towards her. And I would go into her room kind of like, arms rolled up. And this is what happens. It is less time intensive to take a step back and to revisit what it is that they need in order to move forward. Now, I have a webinar next week that's called the Conflict Resolution Solution for Healthcare Providers, where I will show and share with you the secrets to resolving these conflicts faster, the mistakes people are making. I shared one here. It's one of the objections often people will say is, I don't have time for this. I've got to get busy with this other patient. I don't have time to deal with them. I promise you, you have time. And it will be an investment that pays off big time. So I'd love to see you in this webinar. It is free. It's 90 minutes. We're going to dive into a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to give you some frameworks and some strategies that you can implement right away. Just go to tammydunnett.com and you'll see the registration there. And if you give me about 5 minutes, I will come back underneath this stream and I will put the link up there so that you can just register on your own. So it's always amazing when a patient can do a 360, but it's even more amazing when we can do a 360. I hope to see you there. Thanks for watching.